The biggest stories on the South Coast from the WBSM Newsroom. This is WBSM News.
Foundations for the 62 turbines of the Vineyard Wind offshore wind site are now being installed near Martha's Vineyard. The offshore wind site, which is scheduled to go online this year, would generate 800 megawatts of electricity, giving power to more than 400,000 homes and businesses in Massachusetts. The Port of New Bedford became the terminal for the components of the wind turbines, with turbine blades arriving in the harbor this week. Vineyard Wind could be the only major offshore wind site in Massachusetts as of now, after the Commonwealth Wind and SouthCoast Wind projects were thrown into doubt when their contractors asked them to be canceled, citing inflation and high prices. The Taunton Little League will be without umpires during their playoffs. The Greater Taunton Amateur Baseball Umpire Association suspended all officiating after two umpires were threatened following a game. During a game, a call that took runs off the board for the home team resulted in fans chanting the umpires did not know the rules, and two fans threatening them to attack the umpires by the concession stand and in the parking lot. In response, the association decided to suspend all officiating with the league by saying the incident violated their contract. The league and the umpires will meet with Taunton Mayor Shauna O'Connell to try and come to an agreement. Fall River officials have announced the completion of the Quequechan River Trail extension that brings the recreational path from the city to the Westport border. In a release on Friday, city officials said the 10-foot wide shared use path was built along 550 feet of an abandoned railroad right of way on the shore of the South Wadapa Pond. The project will allow the path to be connected to another shared use path through Westport and beyond in the future. The man who was struck by and killed by a train in Wareham on Friday has been identified. In a joint release from Plymouth County District Attorney Tim Walsh, Wareham Police Chief Walter Carrera, and Wareham Fire Chief John Kelly, the victim was identified as 56-year-old Christopher Carter of Dorchester. According to the release, Carter was fishing along the Mass Coastal Railroad tracks that afternoon in the area of Route 6 and Route 28. The area is known in town as the Narrows and is where the roadway and the train tracks cross the Wareham River. Both the train engineer and the conductor remained on the scene and were cooperating with investigators. And New Bedford Mayor John Mitchell celebrated community health workers on Friday for Community Health Worker Awareness and Appreciation Day. The event at Kilburn Hills was hosted by the Southeast United Network of Community Health Workers, which was created in June of last year after the COVID pandemic highlighted the importance of health worker advocacy. The network said community health workers led the pandemic response by conducting contact tracing, home visits, and community outreach, and still act as an important link between doctors and patients. In sports, the Red Sox and the Yankees have a game today at 7:35 p.m. In a close game last night, the Red Sox eked out a win 3-2 over the Yankees. Weather forecast is going to be rainy today in New Bedford with temperatures in the lower 70s, but we're clearing up tonight with lows in the low 50s, and those clear skies are going to continue tomorrow with temperatures at 74 degrees. It is currently 56 degrees and cloudy in New Bedford. I'm Adam Bass, WBSM News. Stay up to date with New Bedford's news talk station, WBSM, and get breaking news alerts and podcasts with the WBSM app.
Back to Brian's Beat. Join the show by calling 508-996-0500. New Bedford's news talk station, 1420 WBSM.
Nothing is as groovy as the boom 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 of the Bedrock Beat. Devil and Batman and all of the gang. Short and crazy, how wherever we meet. Everything is going for the Bedrock Bunch. All the gang is hip at the new drag strip. You'll see Fred and Barney too. Yabba dabba doo. On the Pebbles and Bear Show.
Hour 2 of Brian's Beat. Glad to have you. For those that listened to the tail end of Hour 1, I listened to that caller, and to me, and again, I get it, there are a lot of Trump fans out there. And there are a lot of Biden fans out there. So I know that To one side, it's, oh, we finally got Trump. The other side is, why aren't we going after Biden more? These guys are at the top of the ladder. Information is shared. Trump is telling you on Thursday that he's going to be indicted. He has an idea when it's going to come down. Biden has an idea what's going on in the news. To me, there's a concerted effort to make sure as much as anything possible, things are downplayed. Now, you might say, well, it certainly hasn't been downplayed for Donald Trump. Depends on what channel you're watching. You watch Newsmax. You watch Fox. Yes, they're talking about it, but they're not overemphasizing the story. You've got your MSNBC, you've got your CBS, ABC. By the way, my soap opera was once again interrupted with this Trump thing. Tired of it. Just let me watch my soap opera. Although it is important news. One way or the other. It is important news. To the best of my knowledge, no former president has been indicted. So you may think it's trumped up charges. Might be. I'm more concerned about the real ramifications down the road. And more importantly, what's going on with our economy, stupid. 508-996-0500. Hello, thank you.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Brian.
You know, you're watching corporate media, publicly traded on Wall Street. They want you to take a detour down an old dirt road. You know, I was watching C-SPAN, and they had the USDebtClock.org numbers. United States now, this is federal, state, local, and private debt all added up together is a total of $96 trillion with a T. And just the private U.S. debt, $17 trillion. And the national debt, we know, is $32 trillion. And with this Kevin McCarthy debt ceiling bill, they're going to borrow another $4 trillion to add on to the now $32 trillion. And just the interest on the national debt is over $300 billion. But by the time we're done spending this $4 trillion over 2 years, it'll be close to $1 trillion. And the previous caller says the economy, you know, it's like a dirt road, goes up and down.
I don't know about the down part. Excuse me. I don't know about the up part.
95% of what the U.S. produces, gross domestic product, goes to pay down the U.S. debt. 65% of Americans' income goes to pay down the government debt. You see something, and by the way, the gross domestic product currently is lingering about 1% or a little bit over. And just to put in perspective, well, U.S. is 95%, and the European Union, their national debt's 25% GDP. And we don't have problems here. And like you said, it's a diversion. Take this detour down this old dirt road and just go bird watching.
Yeah, I'm almost willing to go out and buy a new box of popcorn as the Trumpers go after the Bideners and the Bideners go after the Trumpers. It's a big circus.
It is.
It's a big circus, and people are not watching what's going on with their money. Oh, they might hear about Silicon Valley Bank going belly up, but they're not really grasping what is going on.
Yeah, and you know, under Mike McCarthy, his
Kevin?
Debt ceiling. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, you know, just have a senior moment here.
Yeah, the football coach probably doesn't want to be bagged in with the politician.
Right. According to the Associated Press, under Kevin McCarthy's debt ceiling bill, we'll say we're going to spend $4 trillion, but we'll will save 1.5 trillion over 10 years. And let me just give you some figures before I hang up here. $147 billion government waste through fraud and abuse. $1 trillion U.S. trade deficit. $325 billion U.S. trade deficit with China. $273 billion for food and agriculture subsidy. $1.2 trillion for welfare programs. And $100 billion for corporate welfare. And yes, $347 billion of FEMA funding that's being used to help illegals. $800 for cell phones, clothing, food cards, gift cards, housing, hotels, transportation of buses and planes, and yes, and even to keep them up in military bases. FEMA money. That's a lot.
It's staggering.
It is.
Are you willing to give up your favorite federal programs if it means you never again have to pay a federal income tax?
I think most people it's worth looking into.
What about
but
you?
A lot of the money about what as far as the money that I've paid into retirement. No, I paid into it.
I'm
now,
not saying you didn't.
Excuse me?
But are you willing to give up your favorite federal programs if it means you never again have to pay a federal income tax?
Well, I would say, I guess it depends on your circumstances. It's tempting, but as far as right now, I mean, I'm getting peanuts now as it is. I'd probably say, yeah, I'd probably jump onto that. Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks for the call.
All right, Brian.
I do appreciate it. 508-996-0500. Hello.
Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
So, Brian, if I may, there's a lot wrong in this country, and there always has been, but I don't know if I'm just paying more attention, but it seems like there's a lot more on the plate now that's wrong. I'm like you. I want smaller government. I want to be able to get up in the morning, make my own decisions, and if I make the wrong ones, oh, well, that's on me, not have government making them for me. And from there, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump over to the Trump thing. The problem I have with it is I want him to be held accountable if there was wrongdoing, but I also want everyone else to be held accountable. That's the problem I have with all of this, because we know damn well, and I think you and I, just as two gentlemen talking, there's something up with the Bidens. That's not, there's a family there that's not legit across the board. There are problems. So why aren't we looking into those? And why is it like one of the other callers said, as soon as we get close to start saying, hey, what's going on there? Boom, this indictment comes down. I think it's an embarrassment to the country. I think it's a distraction. And I think it's pathetic with people that are in our own citizens that are on the streets, you know, going without and not being able to make ends meet. And yet this is what the country's focused on. You know, it just we're so ass backwards, Brian, in this nation. I get so disgusted with it. I don't know where we turn. Where do we make it a little bit better? Anyway, it just seems we keep going down this slippery slope of ridiculousness in the country, and just I'm watching my nation change right before my eyes.
Well, it has been a slow change because this nation has been changing since the late 1950s. It's just it's slowly evolving.
Let me elaborate, Brian, though. I'm talking about, you know, I'm a guy who grew up in a family where we accepted everyone. Didn't matter the color of your skin or whatever. That was what my family was, and I can say that with all sincerity. And yet now it seems like we're backpedaling now where, okay, and now that wasn't good enough. We haven't moved forward that way. We're going to take a few steps back, and that's all we talk about now. Skin color, racism, different things. It just seems like it's getting ridiculous. You know, gay people, fantastic. LGBTQ. I don't. It's not me. But that's who. And I'm good with everyone around me. Just let me live my life and leave me alone. And don't push your lifestyle onto me. That's fine. I accept you for what you are. But it's like every day, pounding the hammer of now you need to accept me for this. Now this. Now that. Reparations. It's just every time you turn around. It just seems like we're backpedaling on everything in this life that we have.
So did you by chance hear today's quote of the day?
I didn't.
It is from Malcolm X. I'm going to play it for you right now. Ready?
Sure.
We don't believe in integration, but we do believe in brotherhood.
What he was getting at is that integration is what governments force upon the people, whereas brotherhood means that you willingly want to be with the other. Now, that dealt with what was going on with race issues back in the 1960s. Today, we can bring that forward. Not that the race issues have been resolved, but we can bring it forward to what's going on with LGBTQ plus. And pardon me, I don't remember all the symbols. So the same thing is still going on in this country. So what you're talking about is indeed happening. It is being forced upon you by the benevolent hands of governments.
Well, understood. I just feel like most folks are understanding and tolerable, have a great tolerance for other people's. We may not have to agree with it, just like people may not agree with the ridiculous things I do sometimes. But it seems like we're concentrating on a real low number of folks, that maybe have a bee in their bonnet about somebody else's lifestyle. And I think it's just about most of us just want to get up in the morning, have a good day, make some money, pay our bills, and maybe enjoy the fruits of life before it slips away from us. And it just seems like we're getting pounded constantly. And it's the liberal side, the Democrats. I'm telling you now, I don't wake up and I'm a conservative. I don't call myself a social liberal. I'm more libertarian, but I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm about saving a buck so I have it when I need it. That's kind of what I'm all about. And don't take too much of my own money that I've worked for, because I need it too.
Gotcha.
And anyway, all right, my friend. Hey, I appreciate you letting me voice that. Yeah, I really do appreciate that.
No problem. I appreciate your call. 508-996-0500. I see you there. Got to pay a... Just talking to the Bad Bass Man. He's got a story coming up at the bottom of the hour dealing with reparations. Hello. Hello.
Hi, Bri.
Hi, Bri.
How are you today? Did you have your spinach?
If I were doing any better, there would be three of me.
I got there first.
I'm fantabulous.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. One of these days, I'm going to have a coffee with you.
Good luck. I don't drink it.
Oh, see? I planned that. Here?
Good luck. I don't drink it.
Water?
Good luck. I drink it.
All right. Hey, two things.
Yeah.
I heard that last caller, and I completely sympathize. I have a dad that was a World War II dad, and I understand the people of America, I think, are genuinely honest and forthright. But we have a government that it's right now, the doors are open. You can see how corrupt the government is. It's highly corrupt. It's been corrupt for a long time.
And I'm just going to cut you for 1 second.
Yeah.
From the local level to the state level, all the way up to the federal government.
Exactly.
It's permeated with rot.
Well, let me give you an example. So we've been involved with regime change. Do you know when the first time we did regime change in the United States with another country?
I'm going to say probably back as the United States, probably going back to the late 1700s.
He can technically say that. Hawaii. So the King Kamehameha in Hawaii and Queen Liliuokalani, who took over for him when he died of kidney disease. And America had a treaty with Hawaii. America said that this queen had broken the treaty, and on January 17th, 1893, there was a coup d'etat that was sponsored by the United States that killed the last monarchy of Hawaii. That was our first regime change. So we're not, and it's Washington. That's not the average people, but that's how it was. How we think and how we do things. And
do you put that ahead of the regime change with all of the Native American tribes?
No, but I'm not. Well, I don't know. That's around the same time frame, right? 1893. Maybe
No.
1850s.
We were
1893?
doing that back in the 1700s.
Okay, fair enough. But that all goes to the same point, which is that the leadership in Washington, and where I'll push that forward to the Trump thing today. This case should be thrown out. The first thing is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. They're showing all these things like he's going to get 20 years per count. The fact is that the FBI had their hands on all of the documents at the beginning, and they decided to allow him to keep them. That should throw the case out. They had their hands on the documents. They assumed, or they for all of this concern about the secrets of the United States, they allowed him to keep it. If they allowed him to keep it, then they're complicit. If they're complicit, they can't bring the case against him. You can't. They can't do it. To me, it's like, if you wanted these documents, take them. Then have Trump come back and say you can plead a case to take them back afterward, but they are part of the government's property. They did it with Mike Pence. They went to Mike Pence's house when he said, I found some documents, and they said, oh, well, we're going to take them. And Mike said, sure. They just needed to take the documents. And I don't think Trump and his, butler are really going to put up a fight against the FBI with their machine guns, So I don't know. It's wrong all the way around. But this is Washington.
Well, or Florida.
Well,
Indiana with Pence. I mean, all over. The real problem is if government can do it to Mike Pence, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, they sure as heck can do it to me and you.
They will.
All right, man. Thank you much for your call.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. It is time to slide over to Studio 6 and 7/8. That's where Adam has the Bad Bass update.
Thank you, Brian. Former President Trump is accused of putting the country at risk in a new federal indictment. U.S. prosecutors unsealed a 37-count indictment against Trump on Friday that accuses him of mishandling classified documents, including information about secret nuclear programs and U.S. vulnerabilities in the event of attack. Trump is also accused of obstruction of justice, which carries a maximum prison sentence of 20 years if convicted. Special counsel Jack Smith, who is leading the prosecution, said, "We have one set of laws in this country and they apply to everybody." Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is accusing the British Parliament of conducting a witch hunt against him. Johnson resigned from Parliament on Friday and said the House of Commons investigation into his Partygate scandal was an attempt to drive him out. The former Prime Minister said, "I am not alone in thinking that a witch hunt is underway to take revenge for Brexit and ultimately to reverse a 2016 referendum result." Johnson resigned as Prime Minister last July after a number of scandals, including his parties at 10 Downing Street. San Francisco police say at least 5 people are in the hospital after a shooting in the city's Mission District. Police said in a statement that officers were called to the scene at about 9 p.m. local time and found multiple victims suffering from gunshot wounds. Police did not release the exact number of shooting victims or the extent of their injuries. No deaths have been reported and no arrests have been made. The New York legislature is okaying a bill commissioning a study on slavery reparations. Sarah Lee Kessler reports.
The bill passed Thursday night and will now head to Governor Kathy Hochul's desk. It creates a commission to examine the institution of slavery, plus racial and economic discrimination against people of African descent. The first African slaves arrived in New York around the 1620s and built Manhattan's infrastructure. The commission would consider compensation for descendants of slaves. New York now becomes the second state following California to address the issue of reparations. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
The prime suspect in the 2005 disappearance of Natalie Holloway is pleading not guilty to extortion charges. Joran Vandersloot appeared in an Alabama court on Friday after being extradited to the U.S. from Peru on Thursday. He faces charges for allegedly trying to get $250,000 from Holloway's mother in exchange for the location of her body. Holloway went missing while on a high school trip in Aruba in May of 2005. Her body has never been found. In sports, the Red Sox and the Yankees are now playing a ball game at 7:35 p.m. today. Weather forecast. Going to be showers in New Bedford throughout the day with temperatures reaching 70 degrees. Tonight, those skies are going to clear up with temperatures in the low 50s. And tomorrow, it's going to be a pleasant day with some sunshine. Temperatures in the low 70s. It is currently 56 degrees in New Bedford. I'm Adam Bass, WBSM News. Stay up to date with New Bedford's news talk station, WBSM, and get breaking news alerts and podcasts with the WBSM app.
Back to Brian's Beat. Join the show by calling 508-996-0500. New Bedford's news talk station, 1420 WBSM.
Welcome back to Brian's Beat. Glad to be with you. 508-996-0500. Before I get back into some, a lot of people want to talk about Trump today or the sideshow, which is Joe Biden. I want to congratulate the voters, or at least the voters that decided to go to the polls this past Monday in the town of Fairhaven. They rejected a Prop 2.5 override that would have basically made the taxpayers pay more. And no, it's not a lot more. But once you go for 3, 4, 5, or in this particular case, 11 cents per 1,000. Then the next time around, why don't we go for another 3 cents per 1,000? So all of a sudden you're looking at 14 cents, then 8 cents. All of a sudden you're looking at 22 cents. It's gone up over a 3-year period for what are always seem to be worthy causes. In this particular case, it was to restore money into the school budget. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, but you can't be taking money away from the kids. You got to pay the teachers. They need the books. I look at it from the standpoint, is your admissions going up enough to meet that demand? And from what I can hear and see, dealing with Fairhaven and Dartmouth and many other towns, it is not. And so the people said, wait a minute. We're broke the way it is. We're trying to, you want to take care of kids going to these schools. We want to help our children and grandchildren go to college. And so they said no. They said no to that particular override. In Dartmouth, there was not an override vote. But as a town meeting member, I can give you my view of what happened Tuesday day during the Dartmouth town meeting. We were going through the budget. The moderator will go down item by item, dealing with each budget. And she says, if you want to talk about a particular one, yell hold. They got to the school department budget. And all of a sudden there's a hold, almost kind of like somebody is pulling that disc where somebody is then going to fire and try to do some skeet shooting. So it turns out that money had to be taken out of the Dartmouth school budget, or there was not enough money to fulfill all the needs and wants within the Dartmouth school budget. And a school committee member who happens to also be an elected town meeting member said he wanted to take money from the finance department and put it in for the schools to make up for that lost money. The finance department was sitting there, what, you want to take money from us? Why you want to take money from us? We haven't even had a chance to think about it and talk about it. So they were given a few minutes to think and talk about it, and they rejected the idea. But during the process, someone else said, well, there's this kindergarten budget. Now, I don't know its proper name, but I did hear that there was a considerable sum of money in this kindergarten budget. Apparently, it was money put in for kindergartens when they went from part-time to full-time several years ago. And it's money seemingly that's laid dormant in the account. But unfortunately, because that money wasn't up on the agenda to be discussed, money couldn't have been taken from the kindergarten, but just according to the bylaws, you couldn't do that. So all of a sudden, all eyes turned on the finance committee and folks just to say, well, the hell with you. We're going to take your money and give it to the schools because the schools need it. Now, here's the kicker. I'm not going to sit here and say that the schools do not need that money. I can sit here and tell you that the schools don't need that money before the next town meeting, which comes up in the fall. And at that time in the fall, that excess money that sits in the kindergarten budget could then have been brought up and then taken from the kindergarten budget and put into the general school fund. The money that was taken from the finance department is kind of like that rainy day fund where if a boiler breaks, they can just go in and take that money and take care of the boiler problem. So it just goes to show you how people are when you start talking about schools. All of a sudden, it's like a sacred cow. It's like they did not hear. And it's not me making this up. This was brought up during town meeting. That money was not needed at the immediate moment. But folks, oh no, you can't let the schools go without that money. They can't even spend that money right now. But that happened. Here's the other thing. I brought this up with Barry yesterday. You know how New Bedford City Councilor at Large Linda Morad has talked about changing some of the rules and regulations dealing with the CPA, the Community Preservation Act. She, in fact, wanted the city voters to bring it up in a non-binding referendum. This is where you have to wonder about how your tax dollars are really being used. Case in point, did you ever think that the community preservation money could be used to house folks that are considered emotionally, psychologically unstable? In this particular case, $500,000, not a king's ransom, but $500,000 was being sought by the Community Preservation Act folks to go toward building 10 units of seemingly affordable housing. I'm not sure that those that are going to be living in it are going to pay a rotten cent for it. But housing for people that have some stability issues. One of the questions that came up during town meeting was, is this housing going to be used for Dartmouth residents? And you got to figure Dartmouth tax dollars that are staying in Dartmouth should be used for Dartmouth residents, all of Dartmouth. In this particular case, what happens once everything is built out, the first 7 units out of 10 are set aside for Dartmouth residents. Then after that first 7, it comes on a first come or goes on a first come, first served basis. So while Dartmouth residents get 70% of the housing at the onset, after that, you don't have to have any Dartmouth residents in there. So, again, it's not a king's ransom worth of money, but $500,000 is going in that direction. Barry said, well, wait a minute. Community Preservation Act money is not supposed to be used that way. And I said, look, the devil is always in the details. It may never have been intended to be used that way, but there's language in the paperwork that says that it can be. And so it is going to be used in that fashion. Now, I say this to you. You start with $500,000 right now. But as always happens with government, and I think the classic example would be, look what's going on in the city of New Bedford, wrangling over health care cost. The price keeps going up and up and up. According to Mayor Mitchell, and I'm not doubting his figures, by about $1 million a year. Dealing with health care cost for city employees. Go back a few years, it wasn't going up that much. When they decided to implement this particular program, and by the way, prior to Mayor Mitchell going into office, if I recall correctly, that figure each and every year for premiums, whatnot, wasn't anywhere near $500,000. So it's an unintended consequence. And I'm figuring, you've got a city council on one side, you've got the mayor on the other side. And basically, they're squabbling over arbitration. City council is telling you, well, the mayor needs to come and faithfully negotiate at the table. The mayor is saying an arbitrator can help settle this and maybe help reduce the cost. Here's what Brian is saying. Get government out of the healthcare business. They have no place in it. And by the way, they hold the carrot over all the employees' heads. Oh, we tried our best to bargain for you. We tried doing what your union wanted to do. The mayor kept us at bayance. That's what's going to happen. But the bottom line is going to be the price will continue going up, and it's going to cost the taxpayers. Those are the real losers here. So what is a solution? And there are a couple of them out there. First, get them off Blue Cross Blue Shield. There are other services out there. The best solution, in Brian's opinion, is to decide on a sum of money. How much money does the city pay for the employee to have health insurance right now, this year? And give that, even it out, give an average to the employee, and then let the employee go out and get her or his own health plan for what they want, for what they need. Not everybody needs a total comprehensive package. Not that it's not good to have, but not everybody wants it. They'd rather have some extra money. So I think at this particular time, you really have to start thinking outside the box. Do I expect the city council, do I expect the mayor to do something like that? Absolutely not. They're in it for themselves. You know it, and I know